In 2017, I used to work in a local coffee shop of a charming historic town. Quaint little family-owned shops lined each block, their weathered facades and unique signs adding to the appeal of the area. The coffee shop itself was a cozy haven, with the rich aroma of freshly ground espresso beans greeting you as soon as you stepped in. It wasn't only known for its exceptional coffee, but also for its well-crafted in-house pastries and bagels, both savory and sweet. The walls of this little shop were adorned with vintage photographs and local art, reflecting the town's vibrant history. The shop was fairly small in size. It consisted of the main area, which looked like a rustic parlor, a small upstairs loft with a bit of seating, a kitchen tucked behind the main counter, and a basement where we kept most of our inventory. Now let me expand a bit on what I mean when I say this area is something straight out of history. Like most basements in old places, this one too was cold and musty. It might look like any other upon first glance, but take a longer look and you'd soon realize a couple of its walls had been cemented over. The reason being is that they were once part of a tunnel system used as far back as the 1920s. Many speculated it could have been to transport liquor or lead to speakeasies back when alcohol was illegal during Prohibition. In fact, there was an old hotel not too far from the block where the shop was. It was built in 1917 and originally housed secret brothels. Superstitions and eerie tales revolved around these buildings. There was even a ghost walk during the fall season that would take place in the late evening. It winded around downtown and would take participants into a handful of its buildings. While the hidden passages beneath the town had long been sealed, there was still something about that basement. Stand there in silence long enough and you could almost feel the whispers of the past echoing through the damp air, hinting at secrets long buried and stories left untold. During business hours, you could unmistakably hear the thumps and shuffles of guests above as they moved around the old wooden flooring. Somewhat of a chilling sound hearing it from down there. And no matter the hour, that basement always gave me an uneasy feeling like I was disturbing something, and it wanted me to leave. I usually closed up the shop with one or two others. Though they were my co-workers, we were more like a work family of close friends. Those of us who had been there for a while formed a very tight-knit group. On this particular day at work, everything felt off. The whole atmosphere felt like a fever dream. I had volunteered to work from open to close to help a fellow coworker with a dilemma. I assumed maybe I hadn't gotten enough sleep after a very long previous day, and was desperately hoping I wasn't coming down with something. Nonetheless, nothing some espresso couldn't fix. I was in the perfect spot for it after all. It was still dark outside when I arrived that day, the faded blue hues of the morning light barely visible. I was by myself at first, but a cook was in the back prepping bagels and pastries for the day. After getting my opening tasks out of the way, I made myself a strong cup of coffee and downed it, hoping it would remedy my strange feeling. As the morning progressed, one of my good friends and co-worker, Gemma, clocked in. Seeing her was a relief, knowing our random and silly conversations would help distract me from the odd morning. Before long, it was hitting the hours for our practically routine rush of regular customers and tourists. Depending on the season, the area was a huge tourist attraction, and the shop I worked at seemed to be one of the most popular hits. There would be days where the line of customers would trail out the door and a bit down the sidewalk. Hectic. This fell on the first days of summer, when the town was bustling during business hours no matter what the weather. It definitely kept us on our feet, scrambling to get things tended to. The chaos would usually last a bit after open, and well into the afternoon. But strangely enough, that day business was dead. The skies were overcast and gray, but the temperatures were rather pleasant. It made us wonder where everyone was. A handful of regulars had trickled in earlier that morning, but now the place was empty as the morning hours began to transition into afternoon. As much as I loved some downtime, the busy days always helped my shift go by fastest, even if I wanted to faceplant in bed when I got home. Gemma soon spoke up as she walked over to the large front windows to glance down the street. "This is so weird for this place." She then turned around and glanced up at the upstairs seating area. "Literally no one is in here." The three of us over by the coffee bar nodded, somewhat amused by this change of pace. I decided to go do some stalking while business was slow. The other two, Noah and Abby, began to wipe down counters and check fridges. Gemma sauntered off to tidy up the front. I sighed heavily as I looked at that basement door, knowing that's where I had to go for all the items I needed to restock. Noah noticed my reaction and chuckled. "You want to swap? I don't mind doing inventory," he said. "Thanks, Noah. I got it. Just be sure to send any reinforcements if you hear any screams." I laughed and reluctantly trudged down the stairs, the dim light from the old bulb barely illuminating all of the shelving. I felt that uneasy feeling crawling back on my skin, even heavier as I began to grab what I needed. But I knew it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I was down there all but a few minutes when I began to hear the thuds of multiple feet on the floor above me, much more than the few of us that were working. And I could even hear smaller patters that sounded like children running about. I glanced at my watch. Lunch hour. A very suitable time for a rush. I bundled up what I had and fled back up the stairs. Not so much for the urgency to assist with the rush, but for the fact I pictured something like the girl from The Ring chasing me as I left the basement. I got up there and set the items aside as I tidied my apron and looked around. "What? Where'd the group go? Did they leave?" I asked. Abby was at the coffee bar making herself a drink, the counters looking brand new from all the cleaning. "Group? No one's come in yet, and honestly, I've been loving it," she replied as she took her drink to the back. I faintly smiled but just stared. Even after she walked away, I knew for a fact I heard the thuds of footsteps. On days when it was busy, that's exactly how it sounded. All the customers and usually a lot of children sounding like a stampede above the basement. I glanced up the stairs leading to the loft and noticed Gemma wiping down tables. I walked up. "Hey, how long have you been up here?" I asked. For a good bit now. I've been tidying up. Why?" Gemma asked as she stopped and leaned on a chair. "Okay, so you've had the whole bird's eye view of down there, right? Did a group come in? Maybe just for a sec and then leave?" Gemma shook her head. "Nada. It's been crazy quiet ghost town vibes today. With the cleaning done, you and I should whip up some new seasonal coffee. Not like we don't have the time." I nodded, trying to play off my confusion, but Gemma quickly caught on to my expression. She asked me what was wrong, so I told her. "No kidding." Her eyes then fixated behind me as she looked toward the entry. Still nobody. We both descended the stairs, finding Abby and Noah in the small break nook that was tucked behind them. Gemma then spoke up, telling them what I told her. Noah then looked at me and spoke in a hushed tone. "You know there's supposedly haunted history here, right?" he began. Noah was a great character, a hard-working employee and also a complete jokester. All of us loved working with him, and the regular customers absolutely adored him. But with the type of guy he was, you could tell he didn't really take ghosts and spirits and all that too seriously. So it threw me off when he suddenly got this grin on his face and grabbed a paper with a couple of pencils. "Noah," Gemma chimed in. "You cannot be serious. Charlie Charlie?" Charlie Charlie refers to a game where you take a piece of paper and basically draw a big plus sign on it. In the top left, you write the word no top right is the word yes, bottom left the word no, bottom right the word yes. The two pencils, which have to be the vintage wooden ones, you know, the yellowish gold ones that smell of cedar. You stack one on top of the other and ask whoever Charlie is if they're here. The pencil on top is the only one that can move, and supposedly if it does, then you've got a spirit reply. I personally find the paranormal and otherworldly very interesting, but I'm also a huge skeptic, so the two kind of clash, and the whole Charlie game has always felt a bit hokey. What's to say someone couldn't blow on the pencil, or even a draft of air somehow move it? Either way, we all humored him, even if it resulted in eye-rolling. Noah came back with the paper already written on, and two pencils in hand. We all peered around from the break nook to check if any customers had come in. Still no one in sight. We then all proceeded down the creaky basement stairs, and Noah placed the paper and pencils accordingly. "I can't believe we're actually doing this right now," Abby said. "Wait," Noah exclaimed as he bolted back up the stairs. The three of us just looked at each other in amusement as he quickly came back with two small cupcakes with birthday candles in them. "Are you kidding me, Noah?" I said, playfully nudging his arm. "You're gonna get us in trouble." "It's fine. I paid for them." He chuckled as he lit the cupcake candles and flipped off the basement bulb. Real professional ghost hunters we were, sitting there with a crumpled piece of paper, two beaten up pencils, and cupcakes for candles. Noah told us all to back away from the paper and pencils, the warm glow of the candlelight dimly reflecting off our faces. We stood there in the musty air, pin-drop silence as Noah slowly outstretched his arms as if feeling for any air circulating. It was stock still and extremely quiet. "Are you here?" he asked faintly, the main question. I glanced at Abby, who looked like she was trying to do the mannequin challenge by how still she was being. I bit my lip to prevent myself from laughing. "Are you a friend?" Noah proceeded. Nothing. The flames from the candles barely even budged. I admit, the experience was entertaining, but I think all of us knew we weren't going to get anything, especially Noah, which is why he was being so carefree with it all. Gemma then added a question. "Do you like coffee?" she asked, all of us now weirdly comfortable in this creepy old basement, even with the dim candles as our only source of light, which were now slowly melting into the cupcake frosting. "You want to work my shift tomorrow for me?" Abby quietly added, the four of us exchanging smiles now. We gave it a couple more moments. The atmosphere remained eerily still, the pencils not moving a fraction. Noah then got a smirk on his face as he asked a rather bold question in a sort of joking and sarcastic tone. "Do you want to harm us?" It was this question that made everything change. The top pencil undeniably moved to yes. It was a quick and sharp movement, not one that was slow and gradual, as if it was being caused by a breeze or someone sneakily blowing out air. It stopped, just as quickly as it started. We all froze for a millisecond, before tripping over each other on the way back up the stairs. Even Noah, no matter how brave and logical he was. We got back up to the top, my body feeling shocks of adrenaline coursing through it as we caught our breath. I looked over quickly when I saw a figure appear in the corner of my eye. It was a customer. They were standing by the coffee bar looking up at the menu. I rushed over behind the counter shakily. "Hey, I'm so sorry. How long have you been standing here?" I asked. They reassured me and let me know that they had just gotten in. I made them an Americano and they went on their way, the only customer we had since the afternoon hours. The place seemed like a ghost town. I walked back towards the others, All of us pretty quiet, as if trying to rationalize in our heads what just happened before actually speaking on it. Noah, Gemma, Abby, and even myself all had the color washed from our faces. It was tough trying to focus on work after that, although it stayed so slow until the end of the day, and eventually we all came together and shared our thoughts. More thrill and curiosity in our voices now, rather than pure panic and fear. Noah and Gemma went into the basement together to retrieve the candle wax cupcakes, the paper, and the pencils. None of us went back in there again that day. And although he remained skeptical for the most part, I could tell something about that experience really troubled Noah for a good while. I continued working there for about 2 years and had the privilege of working alongside the same group throughout most of it. We brought it up often for a good while, especially when Halloween fell upon us that fall. It was a thrill of telling that story, while also looking for logical answers. I have to say it was even harder to go in the basement after that, and the haunting stories that echoed about the town's unrest began to stand out more to me. Countless claims of ghostly apparitions and disembodied voices, a lady in green, a mysterious cowboy, a shy child. It definitely makes you wonder about a place where the past refuses to stay buried.